Hello, do I start? Is everybody there?
Oh, we are live now.
Okay. Hello, greetings and welcome to this Sapan event. Today we are going to be discussing combat trafficking of women in South Asia. I am Khabar Mumtaz, a Sapan member based in Lahore, and I'm your host for today's program. South Asia Peace Action Network, or Sapan, was launched in March 2021 as a coalition of intergenerational, cross-border, cross-regional, and cross-diasporic individuals and organizations. We regularly hold public discussions on the last Sunday of most months, and we try, and it is carried out, the preparations and all this work is carried out by a team of dedicated, courageous, and committed volunteers. As we begin, I would like to mention that today marks World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. The United Nations General Assembly proclaimed it as necessary to raise, quote, awareness of the situation of victims of human trafficking and for the promotion and protection of their rights. This year's theme for the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons highlights the importance of listening to and learning from survivors of human trafficking. Survivors are key actors in the fight against human trafficking. I'd like to add here that in 2002, South Asian governments adopted the SAARC Convention on Preventing and Combating Trafficking in Women and Children for Prostitution. Some steps have been taken to institute legal and administrative mechanisms in all countries of the region, but unfortunately, coordination on cross-border trafficking is at a standstill because of the stalemate at SAARC for the time being. Also during this time, South Asian Heritage Month is being celebrated to honor recognize, and appreciate South Asian history and culture. This year's theme is Stories to Tell. As you know, at Sapan News Network, we publish stories that try to break barriers and build bridges towards peace, prosperity, and pluralism in region. Today, we have an exceptional panel to discuss the issue of women trafficking in South Asia. We've got advocate and activist Sabine Shrestha in Kathmandu, Vichitra Gupta, founder of the survivor group Apne Aap, author of the recently published novel I Kick and I Fly, journalist, author, and publisher Meher Hussain in Lahore, and prominent advocate and the first UN Special Rapporteur on the Trafficking of Persons, Sigma Huda, in Dhaka. Researcher and activist Shirley Mudaliar from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, India, will present the discussion. Closing remarks followed by a brief question and answer if time permits. There are some house rules. Please make sure mics are on mute. Please introduce yourself in the chat and then post questions. And as always, we invite suggestions and feedback from everyone. Now with us to present this Sapan Founder Charter is Sapan co-founder and Sapan News Network founding editor, also the spirit behind this network, Beena Sarwar. Over to you, Beena.
Thank you so much, Rani. It's so lovely to be here and to have you also have you host this event. I am really honored to be here to share the founding charter, which is, as most of you know who've joined, it came out of a meeting that several of us had, about 80 of us had in March 2021. And we realized that we need a regional approach to all issues in South Asia, which is a regional with lots of potential that's held back by the sour relationship between Pakistan and India. And so many of us came down, met together, and we came up with this founding charter, and I'm honored to present it here for all of you. And the founding charter is is it's on the homepage of southasiapeace.com. And as you can see, the South Asia Peace Action Network is a coalition of individuals and representatives of various organizations joining hand for a minimum common agenda, reclaiming South Asia. And what does that mean? Reclaiming South Asia means that this is a region and we want the integrity of the region. We don't want these borders stopping us from visiting each other. And one of our mentors, the late Ayer Rahman, that was a term that he used at a meeting with the South Asians for Human Rights. And we support the objectives of SARC. I'm not going to read them out. They are at the homepage, southasiapeace.com. But in brief, the founding charter is that the South Asia Peace Action Network calls upon the governments and peoples of the South Asian nations to work towards institute soft borders, visa-free South Asia, visa on arrival, or at least ease of visas to allow freedom of trade and travel to each other's countries. Secondly, to ensure human rights and dignity for all the citizens, including religious and ethnic minorities, women, children, and other oppressed communities. To cooperate in all areas, particularly related to public health, culture, legal reform, education, environment, climate change, water issues, disarmament on militarization, and denuclearization. So we have a whole lot of individuals and institutions already on board, and we have it in various languages. You can go to the homepage, southasiapeace.com, and founding charter, and click on this link to fill in your information if your name is not there. And the charter is up in English, Bangla, Hindi, Punjabi, Sindhi, Telugu, and Urdu, and the Marathi, Nepali, and Gujarati translations we just need to get them checked. And this is all volunteers. So many thanks to all the volunteers for their contributions, and we welcome more translations. Just scroll down very quickly to show you a list of the 50 organizations that have endorsed the founding charter so far. And then a whole lot of the founder members. Amartya was not at the meeting itself, but Amartya Sen was not at the meeting itself, but he endorsed it, and when we discussed with him afterwards, and all these other almost 90 people, over 90 people were present at that meeting. And we have a whole lot of further endorsements. This just gives you a sense, and they're from all over the region, the diaspora, and everything. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just wanted to say that as I mentioned, we've done a huge amount of work over the past 2 years, as Khabar Mumtaz mentioned in her introduction, which some of you missed because we started bang on time for once. Thank you, Sarita. Is that over the past 2 years, we've done all this work on a voluntary basis, and we've been holding these meetings on the last Sunday of most months. And we believe our work is creating an impact, is bringing people together across various divides and creating far-reaching ripples. And I think that together we are stronger. So we welcome any and all contributions. We really need your help to keep this going. Please consider making a regular monthly or yearly donation to sustain our work. And one of our volunteers will add the donate link in the chat. And I want to give a shout out to my friend who I fondly call Munni B, Amina Sayed in Washington, D.C., who is the first and so far only person who has done a recurring contribution to Sapan. So really, really grateful. And please reach out to us if you'd like to join our amazing team of volunteers. And I'm giving it back to you, Rani. Where are you? There you are.
Thank you, Beena. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Sapan member Khushi Kabir in Dhaka for the in memoriam section, honoring those whose legacy we take forward, as well as commemorating some who left us in the last month or so. This is an exercise we carry out every month to remember all those who've been the inspiration for Sapan. Thanks to Sara Arshad in Lahore for preparing the presentation. Khushi, over to you.
Thank you, Khabar. And as Khabar has already said, at Sapan, we traditionally start our events by remembering all those who made their mark in life, who've left us now, but continuing to inspire us. And we also remember those who've left us since our last meeting, who've left this world since our last meeting. We start first by beginning to pay homage to some of the intellectuals and reformers we feel proud to call our torchbearers. They have inspired us and continue to inspire us, even if they're no longer with us. They include Dr. Mubashir Hassan, Kuldeep Nair, Kamla Bhasin, Asma Jahangir, A.A. Rahman, Nirmala Deshpande, Sufia Kamal, Sania Hussain, Rubina Saigal, Sabine Mahmood, Dr. Saman Kelegama, Dr. Iqbal Ahmed, Praful Bidwai, Rajni Kothari, Madanjeet Singh, and so many more, whose name we will keep adding as we go along. So in the next slide, I want to bring to you how we at Sapan grieve the loss of lives in Hussainiwala and Ganda Singhwala floods near the India and Pakistan border and other areas. We also grieve the helicopter crash in Nepal near Mount Everest, where we lost some people, and the continuing and the absolutely horrific violence that is continuing in Manipur and the events that happened with the women in Manipur. The next slide, we have also want to pay our respects to respected Marxist economist Eric Rahim, who started his career as a journalist in Karachi and was Professor Emeritus at Strathclyde University, Glasgow, and who passed away peacefully at his home on the 2nd of May, 2023. We want to remember a few other people. Bangladeshi British actor Meeta Rahman, who died in England after a long battle with pancreatic cancer on June 29, 2023, at the age of 65. And we want to remember Pakistani actor Yusuf Kamal, who was professionally known as Shakil Yusuf, who passed away on 29 June 2023 in Karachi. We want to remember Bangladeshi rights activist Shipra Bose, who died of cancer in Thailand on 1st July while she was being treated, having donated her body for medical research. She was 59. Actually, she was 58. We want to remember Kashmiri nationalist, trade unionist and activist Sampath Prakash, who died on the 1st of July on 2023 in Srinagar after a cardiac arrest. We remember veteran Ambedkarite, social activist and founder of Bhim Patrika, Lahori Ram Bale, passed away on 6 July 2023 in Jalandhar. We want to also remember Pakistani businessman and owner of the Multan Sultans cricket team, Alamgir Tareen, who left us on 6 July 2023 in Lahore. We want to remember singer, freedom fighter, and a regular performer at the then independent Bangla radio station in 1971, Bulbul Mohammad Wish, who was also an activist till her last, who also died of cancer, 14 July 2023 at the age of 70. We want to remember Zishan Afzal Khan, co-founder of Kuch Khas Art Gallery in Islamabad, passed away after a lung operation in London on 18th July 2023. We remember Afghan singer Hasiba Noori, who was killed in an attack by unidentified assailants in the Khyber area on 17th July 2023. We want to remember Muhammad Sadiq Khan, 81, who died in July 23 at his village in Pakistan, Punjab. His younger brother Sikka Khan lives on the Indian side. The brothers had been reunited at Kartarpur corridor in January 2022, 74 years after having been separated during the 47 partition. We want to remember British news reader, journalist and television presenter George Maxwell Alahia, who died at the age of 67 of cancer in London on July 24th, 2023. A lot of people died of cancer. We remember all of them with great fondness, and we hope that what the legacy they have left will continue with us.
Thank you Sorry,
you.
sorry, Khushi. I just want to add that really sorry for the glitch up with the slides. Sarah, who was presenting in Lahore, from Lahore, her the lights went out, and there was a power breakdown. And then I quickly tried to start sharing, but I didn't have the access, and it sort of like, I mean, I had the access, but it was all getting mixed up. So I'll hand it back to you, Khushi. Just apologies to everyone here for that.
So I was just going to thank Sarah, but anyway, thanks, Sarah.
You can still thank her, yes.
Prepared the presentation, which I hope when we do have it online at some point, we will have that. But I really thank everybody for having done all this, that we do take this moment to remember everybody. I think it's so important, and for us in Sapan, this is something that makes it more South Asian for all of us. Thank you, and back to you, Howard.
Thank you, Khushi. This has been a sad month. We've lost many people in this month. And as you say, we pay tribute to them. We now come to our discussion, Combat Trafficking of Women in South Asia. It's going to be moderated by Sapan member Malinda Senaviratna, a poet and writer based in Colombo. He's former editor-in-chief of The Nation, Sri Lanka, and currently contributes columns to the Daily Mirror and Daily News in Colombo. He won the Gratian Prize for his poetry collection, Edges, and the HAI Gunalitilika Prize for the Best Literary Translation, also awarded by the Gratian Trust in 2012 and 2020. Before I hand it over to Malinda, I'd like to remind all those watching and listening that we at Sapan have been carrying out all this work on a purely voluntary basis, as Abina has already mentioned. If you like what we do and support our work, please consider contributing on a regular basis. Just a reminder, one of our volunteers will be putting the donation link in the chat. Malinda, over to you.
Thank you, Kaur. As mentioned, there are lights that go out, and then there are lights that keep shining, and we have some of them right here with us. So hello everyone, I'm Malinda Senaviratna, and I'm excited to be moderating this discussion we are going to have on combating trafficking of women in South Asia. So I'm sure all of you are waiting to hear the thoughts on this subject from our distinguished guests, which we hope will generate a lively and useful discussion. So this is the format. Each panelist will be introduced and will speak for roughly 5 to 7 minutes, offering unique perspectives that will set the stage for the discussion. And of course, these are all very distinguished people. Their CVs are very long, and I hope I will not be doing injustice to the great work that each of them have done by keeping the introductions short, in the interest of providing more time for you to present your thoughts. Once everyone has spoken, we will have a second and final round where each of the panelists will either add to what was said before or respond to or engage with the other panelists for about 3 minutes each. Shirley Leah will offer the concluding remarks, and then we will open it up for questions from the audience, perhaps 2 or 3 or even more, depending on the amount of time available. So to begin with, we'll begin with Sigma Huda, the first UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons. Sigma holds a law degree from the University of Peshawar and became an advocate of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh in 1972. She founded several NGOs, including the Bangladesh Women Lawyers Association and Acid Survivors Foundation. She is a member of the National Council for Women in Development and has held significant positions in the Bangladesh Bar Council. Sigma, please go ahead. The screen is yours.
Can you all hear me? Thank you, Malinda. And good evening to all. It's 8 o'clock at our place, past 8 o'clock. So it's good night also, you could say. Anyway, I'll talk to you about the human trafficking position in Bangladesh. We have taken it very seriously in Bangladesh, the NGOs and the government also, that this is a crime against humanity and we have to do something about it. Even though the SAARC Convention was set up in 2002, yet it is sad to say that we did not manage to make much inroads into implementation of the SAARC Convention. We feel that trafficking persons is actually due to economic reasons. When the girls are out in the lurch because they are abandoned or they have nowhere else to go, so that's the time when they are approached by the traffickers and they are made to lured into good jobs or prospects of good jobs, and then find themselves into sexual exploitation. It's with girls and with men. 92% of the trafficked persons are women and children. So that will give you the magnitude of the whole thing. When you find that in the last 5 years, it was seen that about 13,000 women and children were trafficked across, and only 4,000 were rescued by us. We have been working into the issue of trafficking for a long period. First, it started with the camel jockeys, and there were a lot of young children below 3 years of age who were taken away, lured into Middle East, and made to run races for the Sheikh owners, for the Saudi owners, or for the Dubai or Omanis owners. And of course, we were successful in stopping it. Now they've got robots, little toys, rag dolls that are fitted with batteries to do the racing for them, and they're quite happy with it, and we are also happy with it. We found that in Bangladesh, I'm going to talk about Bangladesh, and every country has its number of trafficked victims, survivors, but I'll talk about Bangladesh. And in Bangladesh, I've seen that the highest number of cases of human trafficking are from 7 districts. And these districts are Maniganj, Faridpur, Naral, Janada, Shariatpur, Brahmanbari, and Hobiganj. So most of these people have been trafficked into Middle East, into so-called employment, domestic employment, but they were not. They were lured with the talk that they're going to go into carpet factories, or they're going to go into mills and industries to work as labor workforce, but they turned out to be working at homes and then exploited. And the risk of human trafficking is very high because we are on the 3 sides. We have got India, so it's very porous borders, and even till today, even with the walls fenced in, the borders being closed and fenced in by India, still there's the people who are trafficked can still go across the borders and with easily. And add to our Bangladeshis who are trafficked, we also have the Rohingyas who are being trafficked right now. The Rohingyas are also going through through the Bay of Bengal and on to Bombay and so on and so forth. And they find themselves in the Middle East, again exploited. So Rohingya girls are also sort of susceptible to trafficking. And some areas of Bangladesh are the hubs of trafficking, as I said earlier. And trafficking gangs are working in these areas, and they lure the residents in various ways. They lure their captives or people who are susceptible to trafficking to come along with them. We have, from my organization, we have found that women are the most victims of human trafficking, and the most common reasons for human trafficking were in the hope of a better life and more financial prosperity. And according to the police headquarters, a total of 6,434 cases have been registered across the country from 2004 to July 2023. 24,504 accused. In these cases, only 10,928 were arrested, 804 cases were settled, 233 were convicted, and the penalty amount is only 3.74% of the total convictions. BCHR, our organization, repatriated a total of 42 people in the country from Middle East since January 2023. And our organization has also done a lot to prevent human trafficking and child marriage is by creating awareness in the community to prevent human trafficking and child marriage, repatriation, and we are also doing the prosecution and persecution. And then we are giving shelter support and legal support. And we are also seeking compensation for the, I'm sorry, my voice is very low. Can you hear me now? And we
Yes,
also,
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Because somebody from Andhra Pradesh was not being able to hear me. So anyway, compensation to victims. We also tried to get that. And the way we do the awareness and advocacy, we try to get survivors. We need to have participation of the survivors to involve them in to curb trafficking, is because they have come out of this various, from this trafficked place, and they have been rescued or they have come out on their own, and now they are campaigners and very strong campaigners, and they're easily able to reach out to the people and make them feel more sincere than people like us talking. We are just NGOs activists that we're working on, talking about trafficking. But the victims themselves, when they become survivors and when they are themselves talking and pleading that this is the situation, because there are a lot of people who think going into prostitution is good fun, but later on they find themselves that no, it's not good fun. They're stuck in a vice and they can't come out of it. It's like a trap. Even if they want to come out of it, they can't come out of it. So this is where the survivors come in and they try to help them to come out. And we've had a lot of prostitutes coming out as survivors and working with us again in return. So we have what we suggest. I would suggest some recommendations. I don't know if 5 minutes are over or not, but because I'm not timing myself. We have said that there have been a lot of laws in Bangladesh relating to trafficking, because we have taken this up very seriously. How much convictions are there is irrelevant, because it's a long delay in disposal of cases makes the victims not come forward, or maybe the witnesses who are there, they don't want to come. They're also frightened because the traffickers are very strong and they're always one step ahead of the law, and they know how to get around the law and the law enforcing agents. And so it's very difficult to get the witnesses to come to depose in the courts of law. So we have a lot of laws, especially in 2000, we had this law called Human Trafficking, we call the Penal Code, and the Women and Children Repression Prevention Act is Nari Shishu Nirjaton Ain. And then where capital punishment has been given as the highest penalty for trafficking women and children. Then besides this, we have the Suppression of Immoral Trafficking Act, like all across South Asia. That is in 1933, it was enacted by the British, but it was not being able to be implemented, and there are a lot of anomalies in that law itself. They define brothels, but they don't make prostitution illegal. So a lot of things are there. And we made a new law, that's why in 2012, the Human Trafficking Prevention and Suppression Act. And in 2002, we did the convention, regional convention, which did not work. It worked. It recognized a very important need, that is the need of cooperation for preventing cross-border trafficking. Cooperation amongst the SAARC region is extremely needed, because from Bangladesh, if it's a source country, it's also a transit country. Nepal, India is also a source country, a transit country. Pakistan is also a source country, transit country. So is Colombo, and so is Sri Lanka, and so are other countries too. Nepal is a source country. So when you have source and transit and are both there prevailing, the cooperation is very, very much needed. Unfortunately, the SAARC convention did not materialize in the sense that it was not implemented for political reasons of SAARC getting slowed down due to India-Pakistan conflict, which is why we couldn't get along with the SAARC objectives properly. So we hope that let SAARC have a political implication if they want to, but let the regional conventions that have been made for better understanding, for better relationship, that should go on. Like for the cultural ties, for controlling trafficking and other crimes, transnational crimes, because these are all transnational crimes, and these are all one of the serious crimes, like drug trafficking, arms smuggling, these are all happening. So if we stop that, let the SAARC go in its own political way, we should make our we should make our convictions come alive realistically. So we have these laws, and we have decided that
this meeting is being recorded.
Sorry. And because of these reasons, that because of the obstacles in implementing prosecution and persecution, We need to go around it. So sometimes the court tries to settle. And now we have a new law, the Child Marriage Restraint Act, in which it has said that for exceptional circumstances, a child can be married off at a tender age. And this is where rape has taken place or where trafficking has been taking place. The trafficked victim can be married off to the trafficker. It's not an answer. That's not an answer to the solution. Getting the woman, the little girl to get married to a trafficker is not the answer, or to the rapist is not the answer. But our judges are doing that with impunity.
Sigma, we'll come back to you because we are running on a tight schedule. It's very interesting what you said. You know, we have our borders which are very strict for certain things, but not for certain other things. And so we'll get back to you in the second round. You can elaborate. Thank you very much for all this information. I mean, I think you just scratched the surface, and you could go on for.
Yeah, because of course trafficking is a big subject. You know, so there are a lot of aspects with trafficking.
Let's hear from Meher Hussain, the news editor of the Friday Times, a sustainable practices advocate and entrepreneur. Meher founded the Zuka Accessories, Zuka Books and Zukast, and her efforts garnered nominations for the UN Women Asia Pacific Award in 2021 and the Prix Voltaire Award in 2023. Meher, over to you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Sapan, for this extremely important and relevant session on human trafficking, focusing on sex trafficking of women and children. I'm grateful to Khabar Mumtaz Saiba and Bina Sarra Saiba for inviting me. I'm delighted and honored to be here. I'm going to start with a quote. All forms of forced labor and traffic in human beings are prohibited. This is what it says in the Constitution of Pakistan in Part 2, the section that delineates fundamental rights and principles of policy. Now, the question is, when was the last time this principle was honored in Pakistan? In 2007, I started working on a report on human trafficking. And the then Director General of the Federal Investigation Agency had to say that under the FIA, there is something called PACTO, which stands for Prevention and Control of Human Trafficking Ordinance 2002. This is within the FIA purview. Internal trafficking is within the purview of local police. He then went on to say, I cannot do anything if you tell me a girl has been abducted from a particular place and taken somewhere for prostitution. I cannot do anything, and it is the local police who deal with it. And therein, we see the problem between the difference between international law when it comes to sex trafficking and Pakistan law. Now, before I get into the legislation, I'm just going to sort of set up how human trafficking is conducted in Pakistan and what the differences between human smuggling, human trafficking, and why sex trafficking is such a problem. Both trafficking and smuggling are processes that make illegal money through exploitation. Human trafficking starts with human smuggling. In Pakistan, this takes place over the Pak-Iran border, in which the people who are being smuggled, I'm going to focus on smuggling initially, are split into two groups. These two groups have different routes. The first one is through Tehran, Turkey, and then Greece. The second one is from Tehran, Chabahar, and then to the Middle East, Muscat or the UAE. 13.3 million adults and children are victims of professional sex slavery that stems from the human smuggling. This makes Pakistan a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children who are then trafficked for two purposes. One is forced labor, the second one is sexual exploitation. In 2007, three trafficking agents based in Gujarat were identified. Three trafficking agents were identified from three different locations in Pakistan. One was a Malik Faisal from Rawalpindi. Second was a Javed Iqbal from Gujarat. The third was Malik Sher from Chaklala. Now, what is the issue in Pakistan? And what makes Pakistan the hotspot for international human trafficking and smuggling, the transit, and the domestic hub for it? Number one, female human trafficking is disregarded because it is mistaken for prostitution. The problem lies in identifying differences between trafficking in females and prostitution. An IOM survey in the context of Pakistan showed that 62% of the respondents believe that prostitution is voluntary as it is paid and trafficking is forced. Only 19.4% knew the difference between prostitution and trafficking. Now, many of you might be thinking, what is the difference? The difference is a matter of perception. There is no as such formal difference that has been identified, but this is what is generally what is accepted. Prostitution is the readiness, and I say readiness with a heavy dose of sarcasm, readiness to engage based on the claim that these females choose to leave prostitution. And of course, this completely disregards lack of opportunity and the difficulties of leaving the prostitution trade. And sex trafficking is when the choice of leaving is eliminated as they lose their passports, ID cards, and other paperwork. So this is the difference. Now, I'm going to talk about the different routes for human smuggling because this is how the sex trafficking is also channeled within. The Nokandi route is the most infamous. It primarily runs through Balochistan, bordering Afghanistan and Iran. You have different routes from land, sea, and air. I can see Melinda has told me I have 2 more minutes, so I'll just very briefly go over it. The breakdown of victims is very much women from emerging economies, including Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka. And human traffickers tend to prey on rural women who move to urban areas for better opportunities, a life of dignity, and stronger economic prospects. Sex trafficking is classified into 3 broad categories. You have slavery, human trafficking, and removal of body parts. Now, Sigma Saiba has already covered child jockeys. So I'm going to talk about women and their sexual exploitation. They are mostly, when they're brought through to Pakistan, this form of smuggling turns into trafficking. There are 4 broad categories of prostitutes that they fall under: dancing girls, call girls, students, or nurses. In 2013, 150 women and children from Bangladesh were smuggled on a monthly basis into Pakistan. This is rooted in a pattern that we've seen repeated time and time again. For example, in 1992, Human Rights Watch documented 1,400 Bangladeshi women in Pakistan who were in Pakistan prisons on the basis of violation of immigration laws or under Hudud ordinance. Now, the US State Department also released a report in 2013, which documented the horrifying details about these women, where they come from, what their economic status is, and how they are living in Pakistan in the jails. They mostly come from Iran, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. Now, I know that Sigma had very correctly identified economic factors, but you see there's another element of it which falls in line with the laws, and I'll go over there very quickly. That is how women are viewed by and large by men. There is no lack of demand for sex from men, and the status of women very much remains an issue. On the part of NGOs, there's not been much work to address either one, such as demystifying sex as an act and how women are to be seen. There have been efforts in literature. I'd like to end my session. If anybody would like to know about the legal aspect of it, I'd be happy to share it, but we're running out of time. Ales Khan did write a book about sex trafficking called No Honor, in which he says, there's a quote that I'm going to end with: "She had lapsed into the world of dreams, most of which had remained unfulfilled." Thank you.
Thank you, Meher. Listening to you, it seems these experiences cut across borders again. Strangely, our commonalities are tragic, and hopefully those commonalities will expand to something positive and collaborative that can make us better as a region, as a community, as a people. Now I will invite Sabine Shrestha, the Executive Director of the Forum for Women, Law and Development, dedicated to non-discrimination and equality. He's an advocate, Sabin is an advocate and human rights activist with a master's degree in law and has focused on reforming laws and policies that discriminate against women, children, persons with disabilities, and marginalized groups over the last 20 years. Sabin was instrumental in drafting the Human Trafficking and Transportation Control Act and Regulation. Over to you, Sabin.
Thank you, Melinda. Namaste to all, and very warm wishes for this World Day Against Trafficking in person. And I hope that one day we'll be able to eradicate this heinous crime, human trafficking, from the world totally. I think being a thought within the regions is also a privilege that the previous respected speaker already highlighted, because being the same regions, the issues are very much similar, as also pointed out by the Melinda. So human trafficking in Nepal is practiced since the decades. It's one of the old offense in Nepal. And Nepal enacted the first return law, that's the country code, in 1853. And that first return law also had the separate chapter on human trafficking. So it shows that from the century, the human trafficking was exist as one of the heinous crime. And initially, the trafficking was practiced for the purpose of the sex work or the prostitution, forced prostitution, as already pointed out. But since 1980s and early 90s, there is also the trafficking of children, particularly for child labor and for use of children in the circus. And then also there is a labor exploitation, forced labor. And since 1990s, it's also trafficking in the forms of the foreign employment. And now there is a trend, and the dimension of human trafficking it's changed. Now there is a new mode trend of the human trafficking can be observed in Nepal, and one of the new trend is the human organ transparent. So this is the one of the growing things, and also the engage of women in abroad in adult entertainment sector is also another area, and the fake or forced or unmatched marriage is another area, particularly in Korea and China region. There is a Nepali woman, they sent to those region for unmatched and forced marriage. And also nowadays there is an education consultancy center, and there is a very fake university, or there is non-existence education center. They are sending the people in the name of the higher education. So there is a many dimension. Even the inter-country adoptions, there is a transaction of money, and in the name of inter-country adoption, there is a money transaction, and particularly the children of the poor family and orphan family and the children in the orphanage is being sold. So there are many dimensions. And in Nepal, now we have a very new act. This is enacted in 2007. It's a Human Trafficking and Transportation Control Act, and we have a regulation in 2009. So as that context is already elaborately explained by the previous speaker from Bangladesh and the Pakistan, I would like to highlight a few of the specific features of our act. And this act particularly taken the human trafficking as a very serious offense. And generally the burden of proof is always lies on the whoever claim that the claimant. But in the Human Trafficking Act, the burden of proof in our Human Trafficking Act is the burden of proof lies on the accused. So if anybody charged on human trafficking, the person who charged on human trafficking need to be proof he hasn't done that act. And we have also the specific features like certification of statement of the survivor. So once the survivor lodged the complaint in the police, so immediately the police take her statement, and that is certified by the district court. And why we do this practice, certification of the statement of the survivor? Because as we know that the human trafficking is very organized and network and the channel crime, and it's conducted by the influenced people, and there is a lots of there is a well, this is a change of the statement, and sometimes the survivor, they don't appear in the court. So to avoid those situations, whenever there is a statement and there is a complaint lodged, so generally there is a special provisions in Nepal that that statement going to be certified by the court, and if the survivor did not appear again in the court, the earlier their statement is taken as the proof. There is a provisions, and also we have a special provisions like establishment of the rehabilitation fund, and this fund is established under Women, Children, and the Senior Citizen Ministry, and this fund is particularly used for the establishment of the rehabilitation center. So this rehabilitation center is not only the place where whenever there is a rescue and they keep the trafficking survivor, and this rehabilitation center is also responsible to do the social integrations, the family integrations to the survivor. So this rehabilitation fund is not only established at the center, at the federal government, and it's also supposed to establish by the provincial government and also by local government. And we have a very many rights are secure within our act. So one of the right is the compensation. So compensation is clearly mentioned. So earlier, before this 2007 Act was enacted, there was no provisions of the compensation. So now there's a compensation is clearly mentioned, and there is a practice is going on to provide compensation to the survivor of trafficking. And another is a confidentiality. So confidentiality is totally maintained, and sometimes the confidentiality of accused is also maintained, because some of the practice, there is an old practice that even the father, even a family member, they sold their own family member, and in case if there is a breach of confidentiality of accused, that may lead to the breach of confidentiality of the survivor, then in that case even the confidentiality of the accused is maintained. And there is also, we have a provisions in our act is the self-defense. So anybody who wants to escape by the human trafficking, and during the self-defense there is anything harm or even death of that trafficker, there is no prosecution to the survivor. So that is also provided. And though the trafficking is a state party criminal case, but the survivor has a right to appoint the separate legal counselor for herself. So that is also the clearly mentioned, and the interpretation facility. So survivors sometimes they may not understand the language used in the court. So also it's very clearly mentioned in the act that the interpreter facilities should also be provided. And another right, it's already it's secure in our act, is the rescue. The rescue is a responsibility of the government of Nepal, and it said that it's a right of the survivor. So whether within the country or outside the country, the rescue is the responsibility of the government. So there is a many rights has been secure in our act, and there is a these provisions like a burden of proof and these provisions, but still the conviction in the trafficking case is still low. Though we have a burden of proof lies on the accused, so around 40% convictions in the trafficking case. And last year there was 134 case was filed on human trafficking, and there was a 187 survivor in 134 case. And out of 187 survivor, only 4 were male, and 183 out of 187, 183 were female. So it clearly shows that though the human trafficking can be happen anyone, still the is predominantly is against women, and still the predominantly against women and for the purpose of sexual exploitation and other exploitation. So I just I saw the Melinda, so I just stop here. I'll add on second round. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems that the more things change, the more things remain the same. And it's important that you highlighted the importance of getting the legislation right and the execution of the legislation enforcement. And that has to be in every country and also together. Now we'll get back to you. There's a very lively discussion going on. So add your comments there, that's good. contribute if you feel like it. Next, we have Ruchira Gupta, who's an Emmy-winning journalist and founder of Apne Aap, an NGO empowering women to exit prostitution. She's authored the recently released I Kick and I Fly. Check that out. And has received numerous honors, including the French Order. I hope I'm getting this right. I don't know much French. French Order National du Mérite and the Clinton Global Citizen Award. She played a key role in establishing the UN Trafficking Fund for Survivors and holds a Doctor of Humane Letters degree. So, Richard, over to you.
Ruchira, are you there? Can you please unmute? You are unmuted, but can you start your video, please? She's sort of seems to have stepped out.
Okay, can we just move on for the moment? And Richard, I mean,
she was actively joining in the chat, so she should be there.
She's there. She just sent a message.
Richard just stepped out away.
Right. She is unmuted, but you can see her.
You just call her.
She's online because she's responded in the chat, but we can't see.
We can see you, Ruchira. Could you? It's okay. We could just do the audio. Maybe there's some technical thing that.
Something's gone wrong somewhere. She was on the chat line.
She's unmuted as well, so she obviously there's some issue with her.
She's not picking up the phone, so.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Shall we just get
And move on and take her later when she's.
yes.
Yeah, let's continue.
She's trying through her phone. She's coming through the phone.
Okay, let's give her a few seconds.
Okay, so she's saying she's trying through the phone. We could not hear you, Ruchira, and we could not.
It will take a minute.
You. So, are you joining from another device?
Yes. Looks like she is.
Okay, she's joining from another device. So.
It will take a minute. We can wait.
Ruchira is somewhere in India right now. I don't know exactly where she was. In Kolkata last. I talked to her.
Goa.
She's in Goa.
No, oh, Goa. Goa is
Lovely
nice.
sunshine.
Okay,
Maybe we can give her some time.
Happy birthday, Ruchira.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday, Ruchira. Maybe we can give her some time and move on to another speaker.
Right. Okay. Let's move to Shirley Mudlia, a doctoral scholar at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Shirley has a postgraduate degree in law and social work and has focused on criminal justice for survivors of trafficking, prison populations, and child sexual abuse since 2013. She led the national research study on human trafficking in India, focusing on marginalized populations in several states, and her work involves engaging with communities and advising policymakers on anti-trafficking response systems and policies. So it would be good if Shirley can give some initial thoughts, but she had to give the concluding remarks at the end of this discussion. So over to you, Shirley. You're muted.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, so the discussion has been very engaging and very thoughtful. So thank you to all the speakers. Like I have written down notes. So while listening to speakers from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Nepal, like all of them have given us a broad positionality of human trafficking in their particular country. They have highlighted how their country is not just a source, but a transit and destination as well. And the different routes that goes from one place to another. Like specifically, Pakistan, the key speaker from Pakistan highlighted the difference between human smuggling and human trafficking, how there's a thin line and how there is a conversion from smuggling to trafficking for commercial sexual exploitation, and how there is a lack of understanding between the key stakeholders in differentiating between prostitution and trafficking. And she has also brought into the aspect of how there's a need for collaboration between NGOs and government stakeholders. Whereas in Bangladesh, the key speaker highlighted how the government body and NGOs are working together to combat human trafficking. But yet there is a need for implementation of SARC protocol. Different forms of trafficking has emerged, like the key speaker from Nepal have highlighted how the trends and dimensions have changed over the years. Although human trafficking has been the oldest in Nepal, and now the new forms have been emerging of late, and how there has been progress in terms of legislation, as well as in terms of victim protection, as well as giving the prosecution, where they have to prove that the benefit of doubt is given to them, and how victims are given compensation for the future rebuilding of their lives. Um, One thing common which came across in the discussion was about the conviction rate. Conviction rate is still low, penalty is still a low and which needs to be worked upon. And in terms of data also, like we could see the magnitude of it, see how the trafficking numbers are high, but the rescues are not that much. And even if the rescues are there, the prosecution is not to that level. So which means that the traffickers are two steps ahead than the civil bodies or the governments or who are working to combat human trafficking. All of them have spoken about the vulnerability factor. So while explaining this and the border, how porous it is, so that there is easy access of trafficking from one place to another place. Um, like I'd like just to highlight, in 2019, we in India we have done a national research study on human trafficking, and whatever factors have been spoken about, it has been covered in the study. So I'll put the link of the report in the chat box for you all to read. It's online available. So just concluding it, what I would like to say is that when we understand human trafficking, like all of them have spoken about how compelling it is, economic factors are there, poverty is there. So human trafficking discussion has to revolve around the vulnerability factors of the survivor and the potential victims. Because vulnerability is a continuum which is present not only at individual level, but even at the household level, even at the community level, and even at further at the regional level. So when we say human trafficking is a global issue, for us to bring about changes at the policy level, we have to link what happens at the micro level to the macro level. So when we are able to engage with someone at a village level, like for example, someone spoke about I think Bangladesh ma'am spoke about, the lady from they spoke about the child marriage aspect, how they are creating awareness on child marriage. So it is one of the social issues which help us to understand how those girls are easy potential for traffickers to put them into commercial sexual exploitation. Like when we look at vulnerability, it is easily reflected into individuals' participation within the community, access to livelihood, and utilization of government schemes. So traffickers prey on isolated or poor individuals. So these vulnerabilities eventually give rise to inequalities, and thus it lowers down the overall growth and welfare of an individual. And when we talk about how policies and programs are less or they are inaccessible to the people in the remote areas, coupled with social exclusion, economic vulnerability, and disempowerment, further marginalizes group of individuals, and thus they are particularly vulnerable to being trafficked. So, like there are several factors which came in to understand the vulnerability, like the poverty, the low human development index, or be it low sex ratio, lack of access to livelihood, political conflict, social discrimination, or development-induced displacement of people. So they all are intertwined within vulnerability, and the traffickers are able to exploit this vulnerability for their commercial gain. So the complex matrix of the insecurities created by various factors deepens the gender, class, and caste-based hierarchies. So if you have to understand from the discussion that has been evolved, there is a need for implementation of the SARC protocol, that is for prevention of women and girls in prostitution. There is a need for more cooperation between the member states. And like, for example, the clandestine nature of trafficking makes it very difficult for effective prevention or protection and prosecution. So if there is more cooperation and more collaboration, not just at micro level, but also from local to national to regional level, and with a good monitoring mechanism, it will be able to help us to curb cross-border trafficking as well. So in terms of interagency, and at each country, the local government can play a proactive role in prevention level, in reducing the existing vulnerabilities, providing the adequate support, and implementing development strategy that addresses root causes of trafficking, and also to have a clear understanding of who is a trafficked victim, who is an illegal migrant, so that they don't differentiate, and so that the identity of the victim stays as a victim and not gets converted to an accused or an offender, because she's already victimized. And with all this process, she'll undergo a secondary level of victimization. So the rebuilding lives of getting her back to the society and making her a market leader becomes even more difficult. So those could be the possible recommendation which we can adopt from this meeting. And in terms of implementation on the ground, like the key speaker from Bangladesh very beautifully, she explained how they try to mold the victim to a survivor and then survivor to a market leader, how she is able to train other girls and empower them so that they come out of that trafficking and rebuild their life. So yeah, if I've missed anything, I think you all please add.
Thank you very much, Shalina. You have the most formidable of all the assignments here, because you got to tie everything up, and you've done an excellent job in piecing things together. I think Ruchira is back and she is ready. So Ruchira is an Emmy-winning journalist and
sorry, Malinda, you already gave her introduction before.
right.
So you just go.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, did she hear it though? But that's okay.
I think she did. She knows how to do it.
Okay, Ruchira, go ahead. I'll prompt you when you're getting it done.
Hello, everyone. So sorry for all these technical glitches, and I'm in Goa, and it's just, I don't know what's going on, but thank you everyone for marking the UN World Day Against Human Trafficking. Today is an important day because, as we all know, and all of you have said, that human trafficking is a very big problem in all our countries. The United Nations, of course, says that 49 million victims of trafficking are living on planet Earth, even as I speak. I am. Is there some background sound coming, or am I imagining it?
It's a background sound. Let me mute.
Somebody that I'm having trouble muting.
You're also hearing it.
Okay.
I just
wanted to say that the scale of the problem is huge. It's affecting all our countries in South Asia. And of course, in South Asia, we have the unique legacy of colonialism, which adds to the mix of the vulnerabilities, which the speaker spoke about before me, about what causes the intersectionality of the root causes of trafficking. So one thing that I want to say is that human trafficking is caused by the intersection of sexism and poverty. So on one hand, you have people who are the most vulnerable and the most marginalized, who are likely to be preyed upon by traffickers because they are poor, because they are female, because they are from marginalized ethnicities, tribes, caste communities, and religions. And also, of course, because they're teenagers. On the other hand, you have the demand side, which is created by a culture of impunity and toxic masculinity, which wants to have people who are docile, who they can dominate and be violent too. And so trafficking is a combination of supply and demand, and it doesn't have to be cross-country, as we all know. It can happen inside a country. It can happen even on the very bed that you're born on. As we know, in the brothels of Bombay and in the place that I work in Apne Aap, in denotified criminal tribes in Bihar. So these are very, very important issues for us to consider, that what is happening and what are the trends in human trafficking now that we have to think about. I think the one thing that this group will understand more than any other group is that how do we deal with trafficking in the context of rising authoritarianism and fascism? Because as we know that we are worried about the power of the police in all our countries. We are worried about the power of the army in all our countries. And yet we want to end impunity for those who are buying and selling human beings. And in this context, I'm thinking about a new bill which is being introduced in Indian Parliament, which gives immense power to the police to raid homes on the pretext of fighting trafficking without even any kind of proper FIR or investigation. And this has been bothering me a lot because I really believe that those who buy and sell human beings should be punished. I really believe that we need an end to impunity for rapes and other kinds of sexual assault on women and girls. But on the other hand, I don't want to give blanket permission to the police. So today, when I was thinking very hard about what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about how do we address the vulnerability of those who are likely to be trafficked, and how do we tackle the demand by ending impunity for those who are buying and selling human beings, which is traffickers, those who employ cheap labor, and those who buy exploited sex and want very young girls. And one of the things I think we need to do as a group is possibly talk to all our governments inside our countries and across countries, is what kind of budget allocations are being done to address the impunity of those who are the most likely to be trafficked. And I call that person, in my context, because I work on sex trafficking, I call that person the last girl. And to me, the last girl is someone who is, from a Gandhian perspective, someone who's the weakest human being I know. She's the 13-year-old in a brothel in Calcutta, or the 19-year-old on a street corner in Delhi. And she is poor, she is female, she's a teenager. On top of that, she's from an oppressed caste or religion. And these intersecting inequalities make her very easy prey to traffickers, because she's looking for food, she's looking for shelter, she's looking for just survival. And they can go and say that we'll offer you a job or whatever. And then on the demand side is this culture of toxic masculinity, which is being promoted by all our governments right now, I feel. And that is, be a vigilante, be the strong man, go out and protect the women and all of that. And also, defining who the good girl is versus the bad girl. So making it okay to prey upon who they consider, quote unquote, the bad girl. And so I think the call to action to all our countries can be more investment in the vulnerabilities, to reduce the vulnerabilities of the last girl, which is investment, increasing investment in food, in clothing, in shelter, in education and healthcare. For us right now, basic needs are human rights. In India, there have been massive budget cuts in, just the public distribution system for food, for example. So the ration card system has been now turned into something else, and you might get food, you may not get food, even if you're poor and marginalized. The same thing is happening with education. Many of you must have followed the protests outside the universities and the schools, where people like Kanhaiya Kumar were talking about the fact that if he did not have subsidized food and housing along with education, which was scholarships for the poor, he would not have been able to be the person he was. And this is continuing across the board. And of course, housing, which used to be part of a whole policy program to give housing to the poor, even that's being dismantled. So we can call on our governments to increase budgets for food, clothing, shelter, housing, legal protection, and education for the most marginalized, identify the vulnerabilities, which the speaker spoke about before me. And I speak about this, I know that today is a week when I'm also releasing my book, I Kick and I Fly, in India. And it's about a 14-year-old girl who escapes the sex trade by becoming a Kung Fu champ. and it's based on true life stories in my own NGO, Apne Aap. And the fact is that she could not have become the Kung Fu champ without having the support of a community and a women's right advocate who actually was able to access government entitlements like low-cost food, like low-cost education, like low-cost housing for her. So we have to understand that this is super important, and I hope my book will carry that message today as well. So we have to really concentrate on that because these are being dismantled in front of our eyes as we speak. The other thing is addressing the demand for human trafficking. We have to talk about the demand for human trafficking is, of course, men who want to buy very young girls, who want to buy exploited sex or cheap labor to turn a profit. And how do they manage to carry on? Why do they get this? One is, of course, they prey on the vulnerabilities, offering food or shelter or whatever, jobs, as many people spoke before me, even marriage as a form of security. But the other reason that they're able to do this is because of the culture of impunity. They are taught as men that they have an entitlement to girls, and the girls must be girls who will obey all their orders, who will be docile and who can be controlled. And they define what is a good girl versus a bad girl. So if they want to escape the backlash of feminism, they go looking to buy girls who are poor and docile, and who may look like the happy hooker, but actually, the smile has 1,000 sorrows behind it. And to address this demand in this time period where fascism is promoting a culture of immunity for toxic masculinity, it's going to be a big challenge for our group. Because remember, fascism eroticizes violence. And we have seen this in Hitler's Germany, and we have seen that in other places where even Hitler, when he was talking about coming back to power, he actually talked about the strong man in his election campaigns. So he said that Germany had lost the First World War because they had lost their masculinity. Because, the Weimar Republic was one of the most free and emancipated republic for women. Women had childcare, they had the right to be in politics, become members of parliament, they had jobs, they were cutting their hair, wearing short skirts, migrating to cities like Berlin and participating in the workforce. And so he said, you've lost the war because you lost your masculinity and you lost control of your family. So I'm going to restore the family and the head of the family to you by restoring the role of the women to the Kinder, the Kirche, and the kitchen. Kinder means children, Kirche means church, and kitchen means kitchen. And it resonated with a lot of German men who allowed him to be able to do that and voted in Hitler. And the first things he did was to actually take away women's rights. He said women cannot participate in higher education. He said Aryan women should have 4 children. And all these roles were prescribed and defined for women. And I can see it happening in India and in many parts of Europe and other parts of the world where toxic masculinity is being promoted as the way to preserve the family and the state. And once we imbibe this idea, we will vote in not just a strong head of the state. We will think that this is what power is, and we will try to vote in a strong head of the country. And he will be right or wrong because he is the head, the strong man. So
Right.
this is
we will get back to you. We're running out of time. We need to have another round for all the panelists. Hitler's Germany didn't end with the end of the Second World War. As you correctly pointed out, fascism and this toxic masculinity and everything is prevalent right before our eyes in where we live. And as mentioned, it takes a village. And we are all part of that village that can put things right. So we'll go to the second round. It's just a very quick, you could respond to whatever was said, or you could engage with, just elaborate on what you have already mentioned. We will start with essentially what we would like is a takeaway message from each of our panelists. Sigma, could you start? You have 3 minutes.
You're muted, Sigma.
Nepal.
Sigma, yeah. Now we
Yeah.
can hear. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, to get along from where Nepal or Pakistan has talked about the trafficking of Bangladeshi women into their countries, and Nepal women coming in the same causes as us, or Bihari, that lady from Bihar also talked. She spoke very well, I must say. Bangladeshi women are, though they are very prominent in public life, you can see them in schools, colleges, working at mills, working as teachers, moving around the city, you can see them. But yet they're the largest number of persons who are trafficked into other countries, or even internally, not just outside. We have, what I liked was to get these women, the survivors, together to form a platform of their own where they can talk about the problems that they faced after being trafficked or even after being recovered, rescued. Because when we rescue these girls from their captivity or whichever situation they are in, we find that they are again targeted a second time over because they are not rehabilitated properly. They're not taken into, they do not merge into the mainstream society, which is a problem here. And also the police are law enforcing agents think of them as loose women. So when they get into police stations to complain, they're again harassed all over again. So they become reticent and they become shy and they become again dormouse to get trampled upon second time over. So we do face that problem. And we have, I did a case for against for the women in prostitution. They were evicted from their brothels. And so I had done a case, but unfortunately, the court thought that since I was fighting for their rights as to live in their homes of their choice, the law enforcing agency were ousting them and pushing them into correctional homes or into destitute homes, vagrant homes. But the court misunderstood the whole idea behind it. And they've said that, oh, so prostitution is legal and the government has no right to. When the prostitution is not legal or it's murky, I won't say it's illegal either, it's murky atmosphere. So we are having a problem with that. So we need to work together in more cooperation, close cooperation regionally, if you really want to make an inroad into the trafficking situation to eradicate. We won't be able to eradicate in totality because it's a centuries old problem, the trafficking. It has not just come just within a day or two with modernism or with closer cooperation between countries. No, it has been there always. So I think we really need to look more, now Sapan can act here to look for more cooperation amongst the South Asian region and the countries where they're pushed into, like the Middle East or Japan or Korea and China, and then work in a regional cooperation that way, in a greater regional cooperation. Rushing through 3 minutes is too fast for me.
Right. I know. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's a centuries-old problem. It's not going to go away tomorrow. And conversations on the subject and interventions on all these issues will continue and they have to continue. And the work that all of you do are very important, and the thoughts that you share will probably be reflected on by all of us. Ruchira is worried that her connection might give her and all of us problems, so we will move on to her immediately, and then we go to the others. Ruchira,
Thank you, because I'm taking hotspot from a phone to do this. I just wonder what's going to happen. Just three things. I want to just say that this group can make a call to action because there are 49 million victims of human trafficking in our world right now. Of these, 8 million are in India, which is that 1 of 6 human trafficking victims live in India right now. There is G20, which is coming up, and there are lots of meetings around G20, which different countries from the whole world will meet. And I think it's very important to learn from the Nordic model to address human trafficking, which is that we address the demand to human trafficking by ending the impunity for those who buy and sell sex and cheap labor. And that includes the sex buyers and the traffickers. And we address the demands, the supply side, by addressing the vulnerability. So call on our countries to spend even a fraction of what we are spending on G20 and other branding exercises on the last girl. And of course, create more awareness and knowledge on these issues, because this is a problem which is in plain sight, but invisible. And one of the things, of course, because this week I'm talking about my book all the time, I would say that let's break the silence for young people as well, because the majority of those trafficked are at least recruited between the ages of 9 and 13. That let's break the silence for young people. Let's discuss this topic with them. And my book, I Kick and I Fly, is written for anyone 14 and up. So read the book, share the book, because it will shatter not just the silence, but it might change the end for some young person, and also give an answer to how do we deal with the human trafficking problem by investing in the most marginalized rather than neglecting them, and how do we address the demand by ending the impunity.
Good.
Right. Thank you very much, Ruchira, encapsulating all that, the demand and supply side, the vulnerabilities and the impunity. These are issues that cut across a lot of things, but most crucially in terms of human trafficking, especially women and children. Shall we move on to Meher? Could you offer your final thoughts and give a takeaway message for everyone?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melinda. Very quickly, I'm just going to go over the legislation aspect because I think that's very important. Although Pakistan passed the Prevention and Control of Human Trafficking Ordinance, PACTO, in 2002, it failed to make a distinction between trafficking and smuggling, especially when the focus is on the external movement of people. It actually took us 16 years to legislate and replace an ordinance on human trafficking. So today, in 2018, we have the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act and the Prevention of Smuggling of Migrants Act in 2018. Now, while this separates smuggling from term trafficking, actual boundaries are still very much blurred, because the PTPA, the Prevention of Trafficking of Persons Act, is when someone uses fraud, force, or intimidation to hire, house, transport, give, or get another human.
Meher, you've muted by mistake. Meher, you've got mute. You hit mute.
I'm so sorry.
It was when you said human, something human uske baad.
It was something about human. I think possibly I was just saying that what was I saying? Oh, or get another human, but there is actually no mention of sex. Sex trafficking does not even fall under the Constitution, Article 11. It actually comes down to the Pakistan Penal Code discussion of the internal trafficking. So that excludes aliens or cross-border victims, although Section 371A and 371B do criminalize the buying and selling of a person for the prostitution. So really, when it comes down to addressing human trafficking in Pakistan, we do have victims from the region, but when they do land up in shelters, the law is where they have failed. And then because the law fails them, they never actually get around to being, rescued or having access to any form of help or advice, and they remain where they are. So they basically remain as missing people. And I think this is where regionally we need to sort of work together to raise awareness, how countries can work together to say that these are our missing people. Does Pakistan have them? If so, where are they? What has happened to them? Otherwise, we see these cases falling through the cracks in the legislation.
Right. Thank you, Meher. Could Shabin also, add your thoughts, final thoughts we have covered a lot of ground, I think, and we have seen the intersection, how important all the work that everyone is doing, and how we can learn from one another. Could you also add your thoughts to this discussion?
I think, yeah, thank you. I think one of the commonalities is the conceptual clarity of the human trafficking. And as the colleague from the Pakistan mentioned that there is a confusion between the human smuggling and the human trafficking. In fact, Nepal is facing very much problem on this issue because we don't have the special legislation to tackle with the human smuggling. And this International Monetary Fund, IMF, they asked Nepal to make a law against the human smuggling. And now the bill is presented in the Nepal parliament that try to include the human smuggling under the definition of human trafficking. So this is the problem, the conceptual clarity. And as the colleague from the Bangladesh mentioned that there is a confusion on sex work and the trafficking. So this is also one of the issue that though there is a many new dimension is coming up in the trafficking. So trafficking is only consolidated and seen as a sex trafficking. And one of the reasons that Sarli highlighted the low reporting. The low reporting because if the people file the case under the human trafficking, there is a stigmatization. So generally people thought if she filed the case, she's sexually exploited, she was forced to do the prostitution. So even to the social reintegration and even in the family integration is very, very hard. So we really work not only the vulnerability to prevent the trafficking, but also we need to empowerment of the trafficking survivor to reintegrate them in the society and how to make them to confidence enough, to bold enough to file a case because the reporting is very, very low. And I think for us, all of the country, all the SAARC nation has ratified the SAARC convention. So we should also try to make, because all of us ratify this convention to how to make this convention in the reality, how to make this convention, because most of the trafficking case, either our country is country of origins or transit or destination. So even we make this convention functional, that may able to address the few, not all the aspect of the human trafficking, but the few aspect of the human trafficking. And thank you very much for giving me opportunity to share my views in this prestigious forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabin. Vulnerabilities don't end with prosecution. We know that, and it's not only in terms of victims of these kinds of things. And it's important that you highlighted how we try to empower the victims post prosecution. Now, Bina, how much time do we have left?
Well, we've kind of, the time is over, but we can have maybe 5 minutes. Maybe we can take 2-3 questions, and I'll just put all the speakers on spotlight, and they can just.
I would like to get Shirley to, because she's good. She could kind of put things together from the second round of that we just had, and I'd like to hear her thoughts also, and then we can ask, give some opportunity for questions. Would that be fine?
Sorry, who did you mention? I didn't hear.
Shirley.
Yes, where is she? Yes, there she is. Yes.
Okay, Shirley, just for your concluding thoughts on what was said in the second round. You'll have to unmute. You are muted as of now. You'll have to unmute, Shirley.
I think she's trying, but there's some technical thing, it seems to be. So she's still muted. Shirley, you're still muted. You can put your comment in the chat, and we'll just put everybody on spotlight right now. Malinda, do you think that's okay?
Yeah, okay, fine.
Okay, so I'm adding Meher, and where's Sigma Ji? Oops, it's hard to find people. There she is. Sigma, I'm adding you also. And who's left? Ruchira? Where's Ruchira? So we got all the speakers. I don't see Ruchira. Ruchira, is your video on?
I think she's left.
Oh, okay. All right.
Are there any questions that anyone, a lot of discussion, comments in the chat, but no specific questions that people may have to direct to any of the panelists or general questions? Just put your hand up and Dina will turn you on, unmute you.
So you can also, I think there were some questions in the chat, so you can, but maybe people don't want to voice them. Southasia has her hand up. Southasia, you can unmute.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to ask a question. Has anything been done, especially to Pakistan, I'm asking, because most of these trafficking has, as we heard you, all the speakers, has been happening towards the Arab countries and the Middle East. So is anything to do with this concept in Islam? And has anyone touched upon this religious group of people to advocate against it? This concept that is misunderstood or maybe understood, I don't know, that whoever works with you can be your sex partner. So this concept of kaneez and all that. And I think in the Middle East, this concept is prevalent. Even people, women who work in the offices are abused because they think it's their right to abuse them. And they don't even consider this an abuse. So any work done on that aspect? Or if not, could we think about it? I'm sorry if there's a fatwa against me, I don't know about that, but asking this question has not been easy.
No, I thank you. And this was something that did cross my mind, that this is a very sensitive topic. And I apologize in advance if it's been triggering for anyone who's been listening, anyone who's been watching. The thing with the Middle East and the thing with South Asia is, I think, primarily how women are viewed. They don't have much of a social status. This lies mostly within the patriarchy, the lack of accountability that men get away with when it comes to crimes against women and children. With regards to using religion, I think religion is mostly used as a policing tool when it comes to women in terms of their bodies, in terms of what they're wearing. And so it's interesting because the victims are actually shamed because, again, like I said, they're seen as wanting to be part of this. And that's why there's such a blur between prostitution and sex trafficking. There's very little understanding that women who are trafficked actually don't have the choice to leave. Prostitutes are able to leave, but of course, social structure and doesn't help, and they face a lot of difficulties. So it's a very sort of tangled mess. And to unravel all these threads, it's going to take a concentrated effort, not just by religion, but societal awareness. We have to start a dialogue, I think regionally, not just within Islamic countries, that how women are to be treated. There are efforts that are being done in art, theater, music, literature. Everything is there. But by and large, I think until greater efforts are taking place to change how females are viewed as a gender, I don't see the flow of sex trafficking slowing down or even being addressed, nor will there be a distinction between prostitution and sex trafficking.
Are there any other questions that people need to ask from any of our panelists?
There's a question in the chat that says, is the role of media sufficient against trafficking? Not that I'm trying to answer all the questions here, but very quickly, given my work in the media, I do remember when the story that I did for the Friday Times, it came out in 2007. There was a lot of risk because there was quite, I spoke about the role of the state. I spoke about how members of the Federal Investigative Agency are complicit. They make money off it. And so I think if the media was to join hands and we are to sort of start a conversation or raise awareness, this is definitely a starting point. It is not the solution. It is not the end all to what is a massive problem. It's a global problem, but it certainly can unite a region in addressing that we are facing this problem. It's not just ours, it's everyone's problem. And if you're not speaking up about it, you most certainly are complicit in it. You are part of the problem. So I think the media is certainly a starting point.
Since I'm a journalist, I can also add something perhaps. Media
Absolutely.
does have a role, but as you said, you're spot on. It's just part of an important, but still only a part of how we respond to these kinds of situations. But more importantly, can get everyone on the page if we want to. If but that requires journalistic intervention and activism, and people need to have the courage and also the eyes to see what's happening, because a lot of these things are hidden. It's not sexy enough sometimes for the media outfit. Anyone else who would like to comment on either of these questions, and then we can wrap it up? I think we're out of time.
Namrata?
Yeah, I just wanted to say.
Go ahead, Namrata.
Okay, thank you. No, I think it's been a wonderful webinar, and it's been a pleasure listening to all of you. One thought that is going on in my mind is that modern day slavery is actually one form of huge trafficking that's happening all over the world. And with the with people being more empowered and adventurous and going out for migration work, both men and women, both of them fall into traps of trafficking by their own country people, and of course others too. But of course here too women are more victimized. Now a couple of stories that I did were stories in Luxembourg and Finland, two of the happiest countries on earth, with some of the best laws. And once the stories were out, both the countries have changed laws, and the Nepali migrant workers, their lives are changing completely. However, at the point I'm trying to make is, all of you, I think, talked about impunity. I think networks like us should now look into the encroaching and ensnaring way the impunity is spreading. Like Sabine says, Nepal already has wonderful laws on anti-trafficking, but why isn't it implemented? And then countries like Luxembourg and Finland also have trafficked people doing work for them within their countries. It is unraveled, but still these things keep happening all over Europe and other places too. So I think, and I'm talking about South Asian people going out to work, but being entrapped into different forms of trafficking. So I think what we should try to have a resolution and work together, Bina at the moment, and all of you, is how do we now start addressing, as media people, as activists, one step after another to look into how impunity is spreading, and it's all the power mongers. I liked what Ruchira said and the example she gave on Hitler's work. I think unseenly in the biggest democracies of our countries these days, these things are happening. So we should start alerting on that. Sorry about if I took a little bit more time. Thank you.
It's okay. Sigma, you have something to say? Maybe you can also respond to Namrata.
Well, there was in the question in the chat, what is Palermo Protocol that we are talking about? The protocol that we are talking about. So it's actually a protocol to supplement the convention for prevention and suppression and punishment in trafficking in persons. So this is a Palermo Protocol, which is actually giving strength to the convention, because you can act on it. You can, and I think that is what whoever was the person who questioned it, I think it should be satisfied with this answer.
Right. Thank you. I think Bina, we need to conclude this at this point. I would like to thank each of our panelists, Sigma Huda, Meher Hussain, Sabine Shrestha, Ruchira Gupta, and Shirley Mudlia, for all the very insightful comments that you have made and the points that you made is given, I think everyone many things to think about, talk about, and act about eventually. And this discussion, these conversations must continue, and I'm sure they will, whether in this forum or elsewhere. It does not matter. The important thing is that we work within our spheres with each other, in our countries and as a region to address this problem. And I would like to thank all the participants as well for engaging, for all the comments in the chat. And let's hope that we can all work towards a better future for all of us.
And thank you to all of you also for allowing me to talk. And Bina Sagar especially.
Apologies for cutting in, but that's the sad.
No, lawyers, when they get talking, they get talking.
Right.
When lawyers and teachers get talking, they get talking.
Good to talk, but then being silent. Okay, Bina, over to you, and yeah, thanks.
Over to Khabar.
Thank you. This was very, very timely and also very rich, the discussion. We're still, I think, trying to find our way through it. I will now read Sapan's proposal for a South Asian tribunal on trafficking of women and girls in South Asia. It's the proposed one. Hopefully everybody will endorse it. One of the significant challenges for the South Asian region is to combat human trafficking. We are confronted with a lack of information about the magnitude of the problem and the dimensions of human trafficking for our region as a whole. Although our individual countries have developed some understanding of this, restricting it within their boundaries.
Right.
The Sapan seminar on combat trafficking of women and girls in South Asia, held on Sunday, 30th July 2023, has been one of the rare occasions when trafficking has been discussed at the regional level, although what we examined and shared was only the tip of the iceberg. We shared some heartbreaking stories, analyzed the current response systems, including individual country legal frameworks and policy. South Asia Peace Action Network, Sapan, appeals to all countries in the region for the SAARC nations to come together on this humanitarian cause and take forward work under the SAARC Convention on combating and preventing trafficking of women and children by assembling a working committee to understand the modus operandi, causes and consequences of human trafficking in the region. We should also like the committee to delve into an exploration of the economics and finances behind human trafficking in our region and identify the social, economic, political, and cultural causes of human trafficking at the household, community, and regional level, along with understanding the linkages between migration, missing persons, and human trafficking. We also appeal to all NGOs and initiatives at the community level that are addressing this issue to write to their individual nation states, urging them to activate SAARC on this. Sapan would like to be part of the collective initiatives at the regional level and assist at all levels, including research, policy programs, and communication of information to the region. Sapan would like to propose a South Asian tribunal on combating the trafficking of women and girls in South Asia so that the issues can be problematized realistically at a regional level. We would also like to propose a Sapan subgroup to take this forward and would appreciate if our Sapan volunteers from our individual countries take the deliberations of this webinar forward. Please keep in mind the resolution is a work in progress and will be made final in the next few days. Any comments? Please do put in the chat box. And so with that, we come to more or less the end of this today's webinar. But before we close, again, I request to please donate using the link in the chat. We appreciate any amount. Rest assured your donation is tax deductible. And you will be seeing the link in the chat box again. And we cannot emphasize enough the importance of your feedback regarding this event. To further our cause, please find the link to the feedback form in the chat. Post feedback form in chat again. A huge thanks to everyone who made this event possible and to all of you watching. Besides those who you saw on the screen today, there are many volunteers without whom we couldn't have done this. Special thanks to Sapan volunteers, Ekta Kapoor, Sara Arshad, Sarita Vartola, Shailaja Rao, Namrata Sharma, Kavita Srivastava, Fozia Deba, and others who have helped us in so many ways. And also thanks to Beena for always being the person to get us into working. Special thanks again to all the panelists, Sigma Huda, Sabine Shrestha, Ruchira Gupta, Meher Hussain, and Shirley Madaliar, and moderator Malinda Senavir Ratna. So with that, we thank you and look forward to seeing you the next time. Remember to fill in the feedback form and contribute. Participants who are not members, this is a welcome to you to please and urging you to join Sapan and make this network bigger and stronger. Goodbye for now. And I think, Beena, you want everybody to switch on their video cameras so we can take a virtual.
Yeah, most of the people have left already, so I don't know if there's any point, but
We can still have some pictures.
yeah, people who are here, if they want to put on their cameras, then we can just, Ekta can do her thing and take the, I'm going to remove all the spotlights.
Thank you.
Ekta, did you do it? Okay, 1 second. Got a snapshot. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can,
Very
yeah.
thought-provoking.
Yeah, thanks so much.